Welcome to Crafty Little Beach. This is Julie. Today I have a Dollar Tree DIY for you. We're going to make a spring wreath, and I'm using the Dollar Tree's wreath form, the large one. This is the 18-inch metal frame and some of their burlap roll. I'm just going to flip it over to get started, and I'm just going to start by hot gluing the burlap roll here to the back of the frame to get us started. And I am simply going to wrap the entire wreath form. Now, I know from doing large wreaths like this from the Dollar Tree that one of these burlap rolls is almost enough, but not quite. So I have a backup there. And you can use any rolled burlap that you can get. I know it can be a little hard to get at Dollar Tree. Whenever I see it, I always try to grab it though, because it's great. Look at this. And it's just the right size to wrap it. I just slightly overlap it a bit. This is how far one roll goes. So I'm going to start and stop. And luckily it stopped right on the back, so I don't have to cut anything off. I can just glue one piece of the burlap roll to the next and keep wrapping. My seam will be there on the back. So I am covering it pretty good. This is going to have multiple rolls, the burlap. I'm going to have part of the wreath visible with the burlap, but it's also going to give me a great thing to attach things to this wreath form. I just make sure to end it here on the back once I got it all covered with a little bit of hot glue back there. And we have a burlap wreath form. I love burlap as a starter for a wreath form. I don't like frilly wreath forms. I always like a little bit more of a rustic feel. For the birdhouse, I picked up this garden pick from the Dollar Tree. And so it is a pick, so I just removed the little metal piece. But you know what? It also takes the little perch. So I'm just going to replace that with a skewer, like pointy end down, and I can just cut that off. I'm using my miter scissors there. I just needed something that was about the same size because that metal was really hard to bend and break, and this would be a little bit easier. I just put some hot glue there on the pointy end and attach it back in there. Raw wood like that is fine. I love the galvanized metal for this, but you could also do this with one of the wood birdhouses from the Dollar Tree. What I like about this one is that it's skinny, so it's not going to stick out far on the wreath. And I'm also going to add some burlap to the roof just to attach some fun. So I just cut out a piece of that burlap ribbon. And a really great way to cut this is just to pull a string right where you need your burlap. And it's a great way to cut the burlap without it fraying. And it gives you a little path there to use your scissors to cut it down to size. I'm just going to attach this to the top of the birdhouse with a little bit of hot glue. And I'm going to have two sections on this wreath form. I'm going to have florals, beautiful moss and everything up on the top left. And I'm going to have a birdhouse, a bird nest, that kind of thing down in the bottom right corner like this. So I think that looks pretty good. And now it's time to start planting the greenery. I had a vision for this one. I wanted soft pink flowers. So I went to Dollar Tree and I found the softest pink flowers I could find. And then I also want lots of greenery. So I'm going to use this one right here. It's not my favorite, but I think it's going to work. And some other baby's breath. I ended up not using quite that much. And I also found some of this greenery. It's like a boxwood with like little berries, like little dots all over, and I chose the white one. Now, this is some greenery that I had left over, so it's not all quite there, but some of them are still together with like two. And so I'm going to leave those together on their wire. But the individual ones, I end up just removing the wire and just using those. That way I can have some smaller pieces and some larger pieces to build out this wreath. I'm going to do the same thing here with the second bundle of that. It's kind of a cheaper feeling plant, but it actually looks pretty nice. So I thought it would work well for this. I'm going to start with two of the two pieces on each side, having them meet in the middle, like right here. And since I'm attaching so many, I'm going to go ahead and zip tie this to attach it to the wreath form. But for the rest of it, I don't use zip ties just because I didn't really want to have to go back and cover all of these zip ties up. As you can see, they're pretty visible at this point, but you won't be able to see that in the end. Now, I've made a lot of wreaths on my channel, and I think this is my favorite wreath that I've ever made. It turned out so pretty. I'm going to have a terrible time taking this down when the season is over. But you know what? You could probably leave it up all summer if you wanted to. Now, for the baby's breath, I'm just going to cut them in individual pieces Really, a little goes a long way on these. I think that's going to work. And I couldn't decide if I should leave the leaves on them or take them off. I do end up taking them off because I felt like it took away from the rest of the greenery, the feel of it that I was going for. I just put those underneath that same zip tie, just using a little hot glue to tack them down to the burlap. And this is one great thing about the burlap. You can kind of poke your greenery in there. You can use hot glue to attach it. I am going to reinforce that because this is going to be on my door, so I don't want any of the stuff falling off. But for right now, I can just kind of poke it in the burlap, tack it down with some hot glue, and I'm layering. So I used some of the baby's breath, and then I'm going back in with that original greenery. And I want it to be a variety of florals on the sides, but that's when I decided I didn't really like the leaves on the baby's breath. So that's okay. They were only tacked down. I can go ahead and just pop those off and remove the leaves on this one. And I do that for all of the ones that I attached. I think 4 bundles of the baby's breath is enough. It provides a nice white. And there you can also use some of the white flowers from Dollar Tree, the little tiny white flowers. That could work as well. And then I'm just gonna start tacking down the greenery. I did another layer of that fern kind, and then I also have this boxwood that also has the little white berries all over. So I think that's gonna go really good with the color scheme. I wanted a lot of green and white for a nice background for those soft pink flowers that I found from the Dollar Tree. Now, if you can't find some pink flowers quite as light as mine, you could always paint them or whitewash them. They actually paint pretty well. And I am just going all over with the greenery, again, layering. Now I'm down to the individual pieces of like the fern-like plant here. And I just make sure I do it symmetrical. So if I add it to one side, I add it to the other, and I try to add it in about the same place. So another boxwood here. And I just want it to look full and lush, but only on this half of the wreath form. To reinforce it, I'm just going to use some Dollar Tree twine. It's going to blend in well with the burlap that we have on there, and it's going to be easier to work with than wire or even zip ties. So let me show you how I go about doing it. I start here at the bottom and I tie it on right here. I'm going to hide that back here in the back. And then I'm just going to simply take my roll and start wrapping this around. In between all those different layers, tying all of the greenery down. It's going to make it a lot sturdier on my front door when it is open and shut, and I won't have to worry about any of this stuff falling off. And I just simply take my time, go between each layer, and wrap this around. Now, you can still kind of see it against the burlap, but I have a plan to hide all of that and to make this part of the wreath look really full and lush. So that is half of it. As you can see, it's symmetrical on each side of the zip tie. I did the same exact thing. And again, I just want everything tied down, but I don't want any of it being tied down. I'm just tying down the stems. I want all the greenery to be plush and out there. So that looks pretty good. I'm just going to wrap this around to the back. You can see about how many times I wrapped it and tie this off on the back. Originally, I was going to cover the entire wreath form with greenery, but I really loved how the burlap looked, and so I'm going to leave some parts of it just with burlap, but I do want lots of moss on there. So I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss and just start breaking it apart in pieces about the same shape that I need, and I'm going to cover any of the wreath form on this section where you can see the burlap or you can see some of the twine or even the zip tie. So basically, I'm just going to piece it together, and it's going to make it look really lush and green for spring. And it's serving another purpose because it's covering up any of the parts of the wreath that I don't want you to see. And it's very lightweight. It holds up well outdoors. For me, even here in Florida, with the hot glue and the moss, especially when you're gluing it to like a burlap surface. I did that with my mossy basket wreath that I did recently on my channel, and it has held up really well outside. And I am just going here on this side too. Every little piece that you could see any of the burlap peeking through or any of the twine or anything like that, I just patch it with a little bit of that reindeer moss. I used a whole package for this just to go in all the different areas here. And as you can see, it makes this part of the wreath look really green and finished. I absolutely love how this turned out. My favorite project is coming up though. We're not quite to it yet. For the flowers, these are the soft pink flowers that I found. I'm just taking them off of their stems and using some hot glue on the stem to glue it down into the reindeer moss and the burlap. Both of those are going to help hold that on there. No need to wire these on there or anything. I do 3 coming down the left side like this, evenly spaced out, and then I'm going to do 3 going out the other direction. And then I'm going to do 3 in a cluster where it kind of all comes together. So this is the third one for this one. And for the where the 3 come together, I'm going to kind of cluster them together like 3, like a little triangle. They're all about the same size, but I just love the colors. I think this is so pretty for spring. And again, I just put these like almost in a triangular pattern. Now it's time to attach our birdhouse. We can start working on this side of the wreath form. There was really no way to tie this on. There's no holes in it, or that would be easy to attach it. And I didn't really want to drill into the metal, so I'll show you what I end up doing. I just take some twine and some more burlap. It could be any fabric, and basically I glue it to the back, and then I make a little patch here to reinforce it with the burlap and the hot glue, and that should make it a little bit stronger. And I am going to just tie this around with the burlap. Right here in this corner, I want to leave a little room because I want to make a bird's nest for this one because I had a bird theme going into this. And I definitely want a little bird on there. I do want a little bit more of the green reindeer moss coming out on the sides. I'm so glad I can find this at my stores again, very plentiful. I thought about ordering a case online, but my stores always seem to carry it, and I keep stocking up on it because I use it for all of my spring crafting, especially like my fairy gardens and stuff like that. So I do a little bit more coming out both the sides of the florals. Now it's time to make a little bird's nest. I have some Dollar Tree raffia. We're making everything from scratch on this one, even the bird. So let me show you how I end up doing it. First, I'm going to take a needle and thread. And then I realized how old I am because I could not see the hole in that needle, but we persevered. I never sew either. My mom was a seamstress, not me. And I am just going to start simply wrapping this around my hand just to see how much of the raffia I need. And I think that's going to be enough, so I just cut off the excess. I wasn't sure exactly how I could build this, but what I did ended up working really well. So I have my little bundle, and I put my hot glue directly on my silicone mat. That is the great thing about these silicone mats. You can actually use them for crafting like this. So I did a circle, and I just lay my raffia right on there, forming that circle the right size that I want, and I am going to hot glue it to itself, circling it around into a nest shape. I am going to use my needle and thread to reinforce this to keep this round shape of the little bird's nest, but I was really impressed with how easy this was to make with just Dollar Tree or raffia. If you don't have a silicone mat like this, I have the one that I use linked in my Amazon shop in the description of today's video. It's called a monster mat. It's huge. You don't have to get one this big, but I love it. It is great for crafting. I just take my needle and thread and basically sew through there. I'm going to go one in each corner here in quadrants, and basically going in and out of the center, wrapping it around the edges and tying it off. Now for the rest of the nest, I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of Spanish moss. I have been trouble finding that at my Dollar Tree, but I have a little bit left over from other DIYs. I just glue a little bit inside my nest, and I'm also going to glue some on the bottom because I think it looks cool, and that can cover up the hot glue down there too. And we have a cute little bird's nest. It was so easy to make. Isn't that adorable? And there's other things you could have used for that too, but that is really the only material I had. Now it's time to DIY a bird. I'm just going to cut out some cardboard and cut a slit in it, and I'm also going to be using a 4-pronged fork. For this, I'm going to use some of this eyelash yarn from the Dollar Tree. I thought we could try to make a pom-pom bird with this. Now, I didn't have any yarn that was a coordinating color, and I needed something stronger than the eyelash yarn, so I used a little bit of jute twine in there. And then I just simply start wrapping this around. I put my jute twine in the slot first, and then I wrapped it about 50 times around my cardboard. I wish I'd had a little bit stronger cardboard. It wanted to cave in on me a little bit, but it still worked. And then I take my twine and I gather it together like this, making it go through the little slot there and tie it off once. And now I can pull it off. I'm also going to tie it as tight as I can and double knot this, leaving the twine on there to be able to attach this to the head of the bird. This is a little bit longer, so that's going to be the body. And one difference from a yarn pom-pom is you don't cut the loops on this. It has that eyelash fringe and it makes it nice and fluffy already, so you don't need to cut it again. Now for the head, I want to make a smaller pom-pom. So I put my twine down the center of the fork and grab it. And again, I wrap it around 50 times. I count it just so I can kind of make sure exactly how much I put on my fork. And then I cut off it right here. And then you bring your twine through one of the middle of the fork there, and you can tie that off. Once you get it tied, you can slide it off your fork and double knot it. Now, this is what I have so far. Again, you don't have to cut the loops. It's already fluffy enough. You can fluff out your loops a little bit, but basically I want to attach the head to the body of the bird. So I just line up my matching twine here and tie this off. I double knot it. Again, I wish I had some matching yarn because I do need to cut these off so you can't see them. I don't want that brown to show through. But I thought it would be stronger to keep my bird attached than to use that eyelash yarn, which is a little bit delicate. So right now I have a tiny pom-pom and a larger pom-pom. The tiny pom-pom is the head. I'm going to shape that out a little bit. I love the fluff on this because I don't have to add feathers or anything like that. You can fluff it out to make it look like tail feathers and stuff like that. And now it just needs a beak and some eyes. For the beak, I'm using just some orange felt from the Dollar Tree, and I cut out a little rectangle. I'm going to fold that over. I want a top beak and a bottom beak, so I just cut out two tiny triangles, just trying them on. This bird is really small, so I'm going to make them a little bit smaller and attach them with hot glue. Now, the reason I wanted to do a bluebird for this is bluebirds really hold a special place in my heart. My mom passed away about 6 years ago, and she would always send me bluebirds. She still does on occasion. And I love seeing a bluebird. It's so funny. One day after she died, I even had a bluebird flying next to my car, next to my driver's window, like all the way up an exit ramp. It was the craziest thing. I saw them everywhere. For the eyes, I just used some of the little plastic dot stickers from the Dollar Tree that I had painted black for a previous DIY. I hot glued one on each side of the bird's head, and we have a little bluebird. I think it's so cute. I'm obsessed with it. Now it's time to attach the little nest to a wreath form. I'm doing it at an angle so it is upright enough to be able to keep the bird in there, but I'm going to need to boost it up a little bit here on the bottom, so I decided to put a little bit of extra Spanish moss underneath of that to have a little bit of a base. Then we can add our adorable little eyelash yarn bluebird from the Dollar Tree. I think it turned out so cute. I hot glue him in its nest so he stays put. And then I also want a little bit more moss on this side to balance it out. So I take a little bit of the reindeer moss and I'm going to glue it underneath of the bird's nest and over on the side. And I want it to look balanced, so I'm going to do it on the other side of the birdhouse too, but not too much. I do want to leave a lot of burlap exposed on this because I think it's really pretty. And there it is, my favorite wreath I've ever done on my channel here. My spring wreath with all these beautiful florals, burlap, and a birdhouse, and a cute little bird. We DIY'd everything was from the Dollar Tree on this one, and it is large. I think it's going to look great on my front door. I can't wait to hang it up. You can kind of see it takes up my entire hall tree how big this wreath is.